well, I just wrapped up a 2-week vacation in Ecuador, so let me tell you about that with some real estate lessons and some economics lessons. And come on, you know I am that real estate geographer, so I need to tell you about some of those items too. I discovered some real surprises there, and you know what's funny is before my Ecuador trip, the most common question I got from GRE followers and others is your trip business or is it personal? Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold. This is GRE. Yeah, I didn't expect so many people to ask that question. My trip was emphatically personal. It was for fun. And now there sure are plenty of legitimate ways to combine a business trip with a fun personal vacation. In fact, Tom Wheelwright has been here on GRE a number of times to tell you how to legally do that, but that's not what this was. This is for fun. I don't illegitimately take deductions if they aren't legitimate business deductions. I don't cheat the system. I have written off portions of trips before if that entailed business, but if I make these illegitimate write-offs, these deductions, well then basically what I've asked you, the taxpayer, to do is pay for part of my trip for me. So it's funny, sometimes I hear people brag about how they wrote off part of their trip or all of their trip and they really couldn't or shouldn't, and then I'm thinking, oh, well actually I'm paying for that. But yes, this for fun trip in this, it's about a Nevada-sized nation is about what Ecuador is. It was divided into 4 parts of 3 to 4 days each. So the first part was in Quito, the capital city. The second part was in the Amazon jungle, yeah, in the eastern part of Ecuador. The third part was way out in the Galapagos Islands, which are owned by Ecuador, off the west coast of the nation. And then the fourth of 4 places was wrapping up in Ecuador's largest city of Guayaquil, which is kind of in the southwestern part of the nation. So I got a pretty good, well-rounded look at the nation. Now, Ecuador dollarized its currency in the year 2000. So previously, their currency unit was called the sucre, and in 2000 is when they made it legal tender, the dollar. So the dollar is still the primary currency in use in Ecuador here 22 years later. And what introducing the dollar and making that the primary currency did was that it stabilized prices after a couple bumpy years, and it also lowered interest rates. One downside effect that it had is now Ecuadorians often cross the border into neighboring Colombia or Peru to buy comparatively cheaper goods as their currencies depreciate faster. But yeah, dollarization has largely been a success in Ecuador, and this is not an unprecedented thing. In fact, even in that Latin American region, other nations like Panama and El Salvador have dollarized with pretty good success. So I know we like to beat up on the dollar here in the United States and how it's losing purchasing power, especially in an era of high inflation. Well, in some cases, it might just be the least worst currency, and maybe that's the best thing that we can say about it from an international perspective. And it's funny, no one seemed to have any concept of Bitcoin there. People that I would ask about this, especially at like the tour guide level, they had not used Bitcoin, they had no concept of it, they had only heard of it, they had no idea like how much a Bitcoin is worth in United States dollars. They had no concept of that. Hey, go ahead and put a like on this if you like getting this international perspective, especially as it pertains to economics, real estate, and yeah, I'm going to mix in some geography here too as I'm telling you about my trip to Ecuador. I'd really appreciate the like. I sure wasn't finding cash flowing real estate in Ecuador, and even though dollarization brought down interest rates are still higher in Ecuador than they are in the United States. Now, one reason that I chose Ecuador for a vacation is its diversity of landscapes. As my Lonely Planet Ecuador book says, just imagine this. Imagine you are off the coast of Ecuador and you travel east 200 kilometers, which is about 120 miles. What you do is you travel over the tropical lowlands, then you go up and over the Andes Mountains, which include ice and snow and glaciers, and you dip down in to the steamy Amazon jungle. Yeah, you experience all that in just about 120 miles, that diversity of landscapes. So yes, we're talking about very big pieces of real estate here. Now, in the 2 biggest cities of Quito, the capital, and Guayaquil, you don't find very many skyscrapers at all. One are for seismic considerations. There are quite a few earthquakes there. And the other is the fact that the airports tend to be pretty close to the city center, although Quito just recently moved their international airport way further out from the city center. But yeah, for metros of 2 to 4 million people in size, remarkably few skyscrapers there. Now, the one remarkable thing about Quito, where I began the trip, and if you listen to me on the Get Rich Education podcast, you heard me talk about this, is Quito's elevation. It is at 9,350 feet up in basically a high valley in the Andes Mountains. And, you know, we talk about the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado in the United States. Yeah, this is almost double the elevation of Denver. So the air is really thin up there in Quito. Now, I live at sea level, so I got sick the first night that I was there. I had just a few breathing problems, but yeah, I got sick because my body was so under-oxygenated, if you will, in that air. Here's an amazing fact about Quito residential real estate. It's common for homes to have neither a heater in them nor air conditioning in them. And the reason for that, it's not poverty, it's topography and geography. They're on the equator, and being at this high elevation, that means that daytime highs year-round rarely exceed 70 degrees Fahrenheit or not much more than that, and then the low temperatures tend to be in the 50s. So you really don't need either device. So the first night I was there, I tend to like it cooler when I sleep. I was looking around for the thermostat. I couldn't find one. It was the strangest thing. There's no way to control the temperature there. Hey, go ahead and put a like on this if you find this interesting or surprising as I talk about Ecuador real estate and economics and geography. Now, at the edge of Quito, there is even a cable car that goes up a mountainside. So what you do from 9,350 foot Quito is that you drive up to 11,000 feet where the bottom of the cable car is. And this cable car goes up the mountain to 13,000 feet. I took that cable car up there, and then what a mountain guide and I did was climb Rucu Pichincha, a 15,400 foot peak that's just outside Quito. It's actually the highest that I've ever been in my entire life. So yeah, this was only about 36 hours after getting sick. So I guess I did bounce back pretty fast. It's just crazy with some of these elevations there. And in fact, after my time in Quito, I had a different tour guide that took me up and over the Andes Mountains, and the top of this pass was at 13,300 feet. Yes, a paved road at that elevation as we made our way off to the Amazon. Now, if you haven't been there, one nice thing that you'll see when you go to the open air markets is that items are truly made in Ecuador. All the handcrafts and purses and blankets and a lot of the food, because you can grow so much agriculture there in Ecuador. So I don't think I saw one tag that said, for example, made in China or Vietnam or the Philippines or Taiwan or any of those sorts of places. Nothing wrong with those sorts of places, but when you travel, you like to buy things that are made locally. Yes, virtually everything is made in Ecuador, this about Nevada-sized nation of 17 million people, and that's about 5% of the population of the United States, to give you some basis of comparison there. The side flight out to Ecuador's Galapagos Islands was remarkable. Of course, this is the archipelago famous for where Charles Darwin formulated his theory of evolution in the 1800s. Even though it belongs to Ecuador, it is way out there. It's an 865-mile flight out from Quito. It's actually in its own time zone. It's out there that far, those Galapagos. And really, they're not quite what you'd expect. The place is known for its wildlife. It is not glitzy. It is not resort-filled. My hotel was really quite modest there. And there's a somewhat limited food selection because it's so remote. One thing that you may not expect, though, is that a lot of the Galapagos are pretty arid. It was actually quite common to see cactus there. Of course, the very coolest thing to see, in my opinion, and a big reason that I went out there, were to see the famous Galapagos giant tortoises, several hundred pounds, maybe up close to 1,000 pounds or more, and they can often live more than 100 years. So some of those tortoises were born in the 1800s. Therefore, perhaps there are tortoises still roaming around that were alive at the time that Darwin did his work there. Just incredible. I'll tell you, Ecuador takes pandemic protocols and mask wearing really seriously. It was pretty common before you went into a restaurant, they want to check your vaccine card before they'll allow you to come in. Even outdoors on the streets of cities, everyone is masked. And I don't mean 90% of people, I mean absolutely everyone is masked. And that was not just in the cities. Even in a village in the Amazon jungle outdoors, everyone is masked. Well, hey, I hope you like this kind of different take as I took you on a little spin around the South American nation of Ecuador, a cool nation with a lot of diversity right on the equator. If you like learning about geography, definitely check out this video of Peter Zion and I, where we talk about United States geography and economics, and especially how that pertains to real estate markets. It had 50,000 views the last time I checked. Definitely one of our more popular videos here with Peter Zion and I talking about United States geography. I hope you enjoyed this video about Ecuador. If you did, please go ahead and give me a like on the video. That gives me a little feedback that this was kind of interesting to you. I'm Keith Weinhold. Thanks so much for stopping by.